Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to start with, first of all, thanking the organizers of this event today. I did not know any of these ladies personally before they contacted me about speaking with you, and I have to say that I'm very impressed. Can you hear me? It's like I'm leaning over. I am very impressed with the enthusiasm and the professionalism with which they did organize this event, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak with you all today. I'd also like to thank all of you participants for coming here today to make the first infertility awareness event such a huge success. Wow, I have to say that I am surprised and to see as many of you here today. And I think if they'd gotten a bigger room, they probably would have been able to fill that as well. So I'd like to say that having personally dealt with infertility, I know, having personally dealt with infertility, I know how difficult it can be to come out in such a public way and make a statement about very private matters such as being diagnosed with and struggling with infertility. So I know that it took a fair amount of courage to come here today. So I'm grateful that you were able to do that, because I know that in doing so that you are helping yourself cope with a very difficult life experience. You're expanding your support system today. You're meeting new people and people that I know that will help you in some way in the future in your efforts to build your family. I also want to say that if you're here with your spouse or partner, or if you're here with a family member or a close friend, that is a great way to show support for someone that you care about, and that you being here today is also helping them cope with a very difficult life experience again. So I'm glad that you were able to come and join your loved one today. So as you know, my name is Kerry Christifano, and I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I do specialize in working with women and couples that have received a diagnosis of infertility, or perhaps trying to make decisions about family building options. I also work with couples while they're going through infertility treatments, which can be very stressful. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. And I also work with couples that may be taking a break from treatment and trying to decide what their next steps might be. I also specialize in doing counseling, consultation, and evaluations for third-party reproduction. So I do work with couples that may be trying to decide if they want to use an egg donor or a sperm donor, perhaps a gestational carrier, or sometimes a combination of all three to build their family. Sometimes couples are trying to make that decision, or maybe they've already made that decision and are wanting to make sure that they've thought about all the special circumstances that go along with making a decision such as that. And I also do evaluations for potential anonymous egg donors. So when I was asked today what I was going to speak about, I had a bit of a difficult time trying to decide what the topic would be. Because when I was thinking about it, there are so many psychological and emotional aspects associated with infertility, and I wanted to pick just the right one. I wanted to pick the one that I hoped would be the most helpful to you, and of course that's impossible to know, but I decided that I would speak about the broad category of stress and infertility. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And that is, of course, a very broad category. And talking about stress, I think most of us know what stress feels like. And there's lots of different definitions for stress. But most definitions of stress state that stress is typically a result of anything that we feel is threatening or harmful. So I think that most of you sitting in this room today know that receiving a diagnosis of infertility can feel very scary, threatening, and harmful in a number of ways. And there are a number of reasons why this is true. And one of them being, and I hear this all the time in clients that I work with, is that women and couples that are diagnosed with infertility unfortunately get messages from the media, whether it's in writing or in print, that somehow you're to blame for your infertility. Also, too, there are things that are said to women and couples that have been diagnosed with infertility by family and friends, and I do want to say for all the family and friends that are here that it is unintentional most of the time. No one would intentionally want to hurt someone that they love and care about. But that is the message many times that is received, that somehow that you are responsible for your infertility. So I'm hopeful I can clear some of that up for you today. I'm going to start with reading, or I'd like to now read the first paragraph of an article that I included in their packet of information. And I didn't speak about that, but there is some information in your bags that you were given with some articles that will go into more detail about the things I'm going to speak about today. And I don't have enough time to talk specifically about coping strategies. I wish I did, but I don't. So you will have some of that information in your packet. And there's also some websites that I listed that are good resources for you to do research. I'm sure you've probably already done, many of you, a fair amount of that, but I know that you'll find good, reliable information there, and I want to stress reliable because there's a lot of bad information out there about infertility. So, okay, so in starting with the article, Coping with the Stress of Infertility, I want to read the first paragraph because I think it really makes a good statement about what I'm trying to say. One of the many challenges of infertility is hearing the assumptions family and friends make about the relationship between stress and infertility. Wouldn't it be nice if what you heard on a daily basis was, "I am sorry that you have to go through infertility treatment. What can I do to support you?" Or, "I know it must be painful for you that your best friend is pregnant. Should I go buy her a shower gift for you?" Instead, you more often hear comments such as, "You are obsessed with this baby thing. If you would just stop thinking about it all the time, it would happen." Or, "If you weren't so fat, thin, if you would only exercise, stop exercising. If you would only do things differently from what you are doing, you would get pregnant." And of course, the all-time favorite, "If you just adopt, you'll get pregnant." That, I want to say, is not true. The research shows that even though most of us know someone or know someone that knows someone that did adopt and get pregnant, the research does not support that if you adopt, you will get pregnant. So if nothing else, let's clear that up today. So I'm curious how many of you in this room have heard some version of the statements that I just read. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I hear that really from every woman and couple that I work with. They hear those kind of comments from family and friends, and sometimes, unfortunately, they hear it from their spouses. And I do want to stress that it is unintentional, but it's important to know that that can add stress for somebody. And it's hard to address that with someone that you love and care about, and you know they care about you. And sometimes it's good to, instead of saying to them, "Don't say that to me anymore," although sometimes that's not such a bad thing either, but to be able to tell them exactly how they can support you, what ways they can support you, and hopefully they'll get the message of the other ways are not supportive. And even though there is some truth that lifestyle factors can impact fertility, including your diet, weight, and exercise habits, as I know Dr. Milroy will speak about later, it is best to think about these factors as a way to enhance your fertility and improve your chances of conception. Many women who are overweight or underweight exercise a lot, don't exercise at all, don't eat very well, drink alcohol, smoke, sometimes do drugs, they get pregnant. So these are factors, however, that you can control in the midst of a life experience where you many times feel out of control. And quite frankly, you are out of control of the outcome. So even though we can't say for most people that these factors, independently of themselves, are not keeping you from getting pregnant, if you are doing everything you can in these areas, that we do know that you can increase your chances of conceiving. So the question is then, does stress cause infertility? Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. What we do know is that there is a relationship between stress and infertility. We just do not fully understand the direction of the relationship. And that means that we can't say necessarily that stress causes infertility. It's highly unlikely in general that stress independently, all by itself, causes infertility. But what we do know is that receiving a diagnosis of infertility is very stressful. We also know that trying to make decisions about family building options can be very stressful. It's also very stressful to go through medical treatments, That's very hard. And it's also especially difficult to go through medical treatments and have those treatments fail. So we know that women experiencing infertility, also we do know that they're twice as likely to get depressed than women who do not experience infertility. And the incidence of depression for women diagnosed with infertility peaks at 2 to 3 years of not conceiving. Unfortunately, by the time you receive a diagnosis of infertility, you very likely have been trying to conceive on your own for a year. So therefore, if you decide to seek treatment, it is of utmost importance that you know the signs of depression and get help immediately if you think you might be depressed. And there is a sheet in the information that I provided to you. It's one sheet that I printed from the American Society of Reproductive Medicine's website, and it talks about some of the things to look for when if you might be depressed, considering if you might be depressed and needing to ask for help. And even if you decide not to seek treatment and are perhaps considering adoption, it is still important to catch signs of depression earlier rather than later. It is much easier to treat mild to moderate depression than severe depression. Helping yourself feel better is the primary goal in diagnosing and treating depression, but it can also increase your chances of conception. Research shows for women that undergo in vitro fertilization, distress levels are associated with decreased pregnancy rates. In these studies, the more anxiety or depression that a woman expressed before going through IVF meant that she was less likely to get pregnant. So it's logical then for IVF success and the increased possibilities in all fertility situations to practice stress reduction techniques. And we know the longer that you're in the world of infertility and treatment for infertility and trying to decide about infertility, the higher your risk of getting depressed and feeling bad. So learning how to deal with those, dealing with those stressors can help you, again, feel better, but also increase your chances of conception. And as for the most effective treatment for depression, it depends on the severity of your depression. For mild to moderate depression, in most cases, counseling or medication alone can help with symptom reduction. For moderate to severe depression, medication and counseling combined is the most effective. It's important to discuss your options with your physician and a mental health professional. So now that I unfortunately told you there's no definitive answer about the relationship between stress and infertility, I hope you understand it better. And I'd like to talk about specifically how the stressors of going through this experience can have an impact on your daily life. And literally, it does touch every area of your life. And it has the potential to create huge amounts of stress in your daily living. First of all, in talking about how it impacts the relationship between you and your spouse or partner, it does that in a number of ways. And what I see a lot is rarely do men and women respond to infertility in the same way. And these differences can make communicating very challenging, if not impossible, which can intensify feelings of loneliness and isolation. There are two distinct ways that women respond to the experience of infertility that men don't. And I really want to stress to all of you that these responses are typical and normal. I have yet to meet one woman that has not described feeling this way, and that includes myself, because I've been in this world as well. And the first one is that women express more distress regarding their infertility than men do. They want to talk about it more than men. And this is, everybody's shaking their head, yeah? Well, this is because women are emotion-focused in their coping, which means it helps them to cope with painful emotions, to process them and talk about them. Now, this can become a problem if a woman becomes obsessed with the topic and wants to talk about it all the time. That can be really frustrating and challenging for your partner or your spouse, because men are more problem-focused in their coping, and so many times they feel if you've already talked about something once before, then what else is there to say? So again, good communication can help in working through that. Women also tend to become jealous when another person conceives and may want to avoid pregnant women and babies more than their partner. This can put pressure on a couple, especially when we're talking about close family members like siblings, close friends. If one person wants to go to a family get-together where somebody's going to announce their pregnancy and one person doesn't, again, communication, being able to communicate effectively about working through these differences is very important. And if you have a hard time doing that, counseling can be very helpful in that area. Infertility changes the sexual relationship for a couple. I think I don't need to say a lot about that because you all probably know what that feels like. the sexual relationship goes from a pleasurable and fun way to connect and bond with your partner to a chore. You're just trying to make a baby. And it is a constant reminder of what's not happening. And it's hard to enjoy sex when one or both of you are thinking about, am I going to get pregnant, am I not? Or I'm not going to get pregnant, so why bother? So it definitely impacts the relationship in that way. Decision making about treatment and family building options can be very stressful. And communicating effectively also helps in avoiding adding more stress in a very stressful time. And we already talked a little bit about how the experience can have a negative impact on your relationship with family and friends. Also, too, in that area, it's hard to manage difficult emotions when hearing the quote-unquote good news of others conceiving, and possibly hearing the their negative emotions, that you're not happy enough for them. I hear that a fair amount. Being hurt by these comments can create a lot of stress and makes you want to avoid these people and situations sometimes even more. And that, unfortunately, means that you lose the social support that you need during a very difficult time. So that means it's important for you to find new sources of support, like coming to this event today. Infertility also can impact your job with with missing work because of doctor's appointments and treatment timelines, and making you unable to travel for work. So this can be especially stressful if supervisors and coworkers don't know what you're going through. And you don't want them to know, but if you're in this world long enough, unfortunately, you have to find a way to tell them. Also, it's very difficult to avoid pregnant coworkers and work-related baby showers. It's a little easier to avoid friends and family members because if you don't want to go to an event, you don't have to, but you have to go to work every day. So that is really, really a very difficult thing for a lot of people. Infertility can also cause financial stress. As you know, treatment can be very expensive. Sometimes it's not even an option. And so most people have very limited resources in trying to decide what to spend your money on, how many times to do a certain treatment, or whether to consider adoption. Very difficult to manage. And last but not leastly not important, is that infertility can lead to a religious or spiritual crisis. The inability to conceive many times causes anger at God for not answering your prayers. Sometimes it's the first time that maybe God has not answered your prayers, or He hasn't answered them yet. I want to say that. It also can create feelings of guilt and shame that you are being punished for previous behaviors or choices. And some religions are against certain treatments for infertility, leaving individuals feeling torn, having to choose what family building options that they'll even consider. There's a lot of other things I could talk about today, but I'm almost out of time, and I just want to end with reading the very last paragraph of that same article that I referred to earlier, because it really summarizes how I feel right now. And that is, many individuals experiencing infertility report that it is the most stressful period of their lives. If you feel this way, you are not alone. However, there are several things to remember. First of all, you are literally not alone. There are millions of people in this country struggling with infertility. Second, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and isolated. Third, these feelings are not causing your infertility. But fourth, if you are feeling distressed much of the time, not only is this clearly decreasing your quality of life, but it may render infertility treatments less effective. There are many things which you can do to feel better, ranging from joining a support group to learning stress management techniques. Just remember, this is a temporary crisis. The most important thing to know is that no matter how your infertility is resolved, you will be okay. Thank you.